Well, folks, welcome back to another great Light of the Southwest right here at GLC Studios. So excited for today's guest. He's a longtime GLC favorite now. And I'll never forget, in 2009, he came to Studio B, and the average person records a few shows. He recorded 12, talking about Jesus, things you've never heard before, things I never even heard in Bible college. But he truly is the most interesting man in the world, whether it's writing best-selling books or helping governments rewrite constitutions like Albania. It's none other than my dear friend, spiritual father, Dr. Ron Charles. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Brant.
Always good to see you.
Well, thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, you know, West Texas loves you, Dr. Ron. And of course, you know.
The feeling's mutual.
Well, you know what? It should be, because they love you. They get it. I'll never forget that day in 2009, though. You know, because my favorite thing to talk about is Jesus. And when you hear the historical stories of Jesus that, you know, as a boy, you'd hear he never traveled 200 miles from the place he was born. Or you would hear, you know, there's more information about Jesus outside of the Bible than Alexander the Great. I thought, well, where is it? Well, I found it in 2009 when you came for the first time to GLC, and Al and Tommy loved you so much as well. But that was a good at least 8 hours straight of teaching things about Jesus. Did you know that a lot of the miracles, I would say most of them, that Jesus performed were not only witnessed by the Romans, but recorded by the Romans?
That's right.
You're going to hear a little bit about that today. But catching up with Dr. Ron Charles of CubitFoundation.org. What's the latest happening with Cubit?
Well, we, of course, this COVID thing has really put a niche in what we're doing.
Wow.
You know, we haven't been able to go to South America nor to India, Europe. We've been extremely restricted on Egypt. So that has crimped our travel schedule, but more importantly, it's we've been having problems getting money over to support these folks, and so our workers over there on the ground, they've picked up the slack and supplied the funds when they didn't have them, but they did it anyway because of their dedication to the Lord and what we're doing for the Lord over there. And so hopefully this year things are going to loosen up some, I hope, and I'm trusting God to do that so we can get back to normal.
Wow. Well, you know, if you've ever been to Egypt with Dr. Ron, you're going to know what the situation is on the ground. You fall in love with the people. And of course, you've been ministering bags of hope to widows and orphans. Yeah. Well, I would say almost 30 years.
Yes.
In Garbage City in Cairo. You ought to Google that sometime. But the wonderful President El-Sisi of Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
It was his men that...
He's a godsend.
He is a godsend. He guarded us when we went to Egypt. The first time in over 1,000 years.
Yes.
28 of us got to minister to the persecuted church there. El-Sisi is an incredible man, incredible president. Very grateful for him. I'm grateful for his love for you. Now, you may ask, how did the president of Egypt befriend and assist with Dr. Ron Charles? Well, folks, during the Muslim Brotherhood Revolution, or the Arab Spring, and I put it in quotes for a good reason, a couple of administrations ago that helped fund that uprising. It was not what you thought it was, folks. But you know what? During that revolution, though, of the Arab minority, the Muslim Brotherhood, the missionaries left. Many of them left those multi-million-dollar apartments.
Yes.
But one man did not leave Egypt, and that was Dr. Ron Charles right here at GLC, and the president took notice of that. Yep. He gathered everyone together, major leaders, and some of the biggest names that a lot of you have seen on Christian television, and he let you know that when others left, you didn't leave.
Yeah, he did.
That was at the threat of your life.
Yes, it was.
And for many years, there's been threats. You know, you've been shot at and stabbed. And those who know you know that you have been living the life of a modern day Paul.
Well, some lists you're privileged to be at the top of.
Right.
But then some lists you're wish perhaps you weren't at the top of it. And being at the top of the Muslim Brotherhood list is not one to be proud of.
Right.
But I got there because we did refuse to leave, and we kept ministering to our widows, and kept ministering to the persecuted believers, and it is true the government did take note, and so that's the reason why if I say that we're coming over, they jump through themselves to provide the necessary security, and probably far more than what's necessary.
It's not just Egypt, Dr. Ron, that the Cubit Foundation reaches.
Right.
It's all over the world. It's Latin America. It's also in Germany.
Correct.
Of course, you've had quite a footprint in India as well. When they would bring you over and run you from dawn to dusk of dawn and preaching to thousands of pastors and people all over India. Folks, go to thecubitfoundation.org today. Also, you definitely want to go to Spotify or Anchor.fm or Apple Play and listen to the podcast. You're going to hear some of these incredible stories about Jesus. And we will get to that in a little bit, but you definitely want to go to thecubitfoundation.org. And it's a hub of sorts. All the incredible books, The Search and Chasing Jesus, unbelievable, incredible work. Over 30 years that you spent in Europe, in the Middle East, and Asia, searching and verifying the truth of Jesus Christ. Folks, you know, every year Time Magazine puts out the same lame story. Did Jesus exist? They know that he did. History verifies that Jesus exists. Jesus is history. Sure. And I tell you what, you'll be so excited to go to cubitfoundation.org and see the books about Jesus. You know, you've heard sermons your whole life. In a Bible college, you know, we learned some great things about the Bible, but I could have saved a lot of money. I would have met you the first time, because, you know, stories that you've heard in church, so the man with the withered hand that you just preached about in Andrews, you know, the woman at the well, about her name being Fotina, because she had the illumination of God on her face, how Nero killed her by throwing her down a well. Yeah. But the church that she ignited was in existence up to the time of ISIS, maybe still be, hopefully.
That's right.
But stories about Jesus that strengthen your faith. And of course, one of these days, we're going to get you to do your biography. An incredible story, folks. You may recognize Dr. Ron Charles. You know, there was things on the Discovery Channel. There's also things on Time Magazine. Yeah. The very first discovery of this structure on Mount Ararat, and how a Russian helicopter pilot received Jesus in midair, mid-flight, because, as you say, he was looking and says, what I'm looking at, I've been told, was a fairy tale this whole time.
This is Mickey Mouse, and now I can see that it's real. And he was a professed atheist his entire life. President Gorbachev's personal helicopter pilot.
Wow.
And he just so happened to believe. And not only did he believe, but he did accept Christ. Went back and planted a church in Russia, which is still going on today.
Wow. A lot of stories like that.
Yeah.
There have been many people in high places who have come to Jesus at your meetings.
Yes, they have.
And are you allowed to say a certain vice president that came
Sure.
to Jesus during one of your meetings?
Yeah.
Vice president at that time of Colombia.
Of Colombia.
And where is he now?
He's the president now.
He's the president now.
And he's invited us down. It depends on the COVID thing, but to hold a series of meetings, because he wants his people to have the same opportunity that he had to accept Christ.
You know, folks, not everyone who you think is your enemy is your enemy. You know, the Bible says that when your ways are pleasing to the Lord, even your enemies will be at peace with you.
Yeah.
But you know, not everyone is your enemy, folks. Boy, I can tell you that. I'll never forget the time going to Egypt for the very first time. I had a very negative view of people group that I had judged wrongly.
Well, you're of the opinion that every other person you met was a terrorist.
That's true. That's true. Did you know that the Egyptians are not Arabs?
Yeah.
The beautiful people Not saying the Arabs aren't either, but I'm just saying that they're Egyptians. They're beautiful people. And touching down there in Cairo and meeting Muhammad and Mustafa, falling in love with them, and it changed my life. It can change your lives too. You know, folks, whenever you dare to step into the darkness of the unknown, and you step out of your comfort zone, and you ask for God to send people to you, He will. Or you ask for opportunities to love people with the love of God, He will. He'll do that for you. Jesus is alive, and He is real, and He is history.
He is.
And you've been a big part of history, my friend. You know, from the 70s of the discovery of the first structure with the dimensions of the ark on Mount Ararat, to the Babylonian dig and the Babylonian furnaces. Part of that dig for the discovery of how they burnt the blue glass
Yes.
onto the bricks. And someone we know wrote the patent for Corningware. You know, but the roles God has let you play. Also supporting people. You wrote for Larry Burkett.
I did.
Ghostwriting for what, 15 years?
Well, the last 15 books.
Last 15 books.
Yeah, and including his three bestsellers. So.
Right. But facilitating and being a part of history, being a part of incredible ministries. You've been a good Joshua and you've been a good Moses. And then the Lord let you know that if you chose to go to the nations, you could have your choice.
Yeah, he did.
You could leverage all the things you've been doing, all the people you've known, all the people He's helped, or you could go overseas, where it may not be as outwardly quote unquote glorious. Let me tell you something, folks. It's in those places where you're serving Jesus, boots on the ground.
Right.
That's where the real glory is.
And the other newspaper, television glory just would not be there.
Right. Well, look at it now. Look at it now.
Yeah.
Can you imagine spending your life trying to be big in the media, and now look at the mainstream media now, only to discover that they may not be on your side.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, His approval, I'm more concerned about His approval ratings
That's right.
than some false polls, you know, at some of the most vile places in our nation.
His ratings forever.
Yeah. Well, I've seen it. I've seen it in action. And Dr. Ron, you know, you really are the most interesting man in the world. But I'll never forget going over to Egypt with you the first time.
You've been three times.
Yes, sir. And it was just interesting. I mean, there was a lot of reverence, a lot of love for you from the government as well as the people. Same thing in Germany too.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's amazing what happens. Boy, was the Messiah correct when He said, if you put first the kingdom, all the other things will be added. And I know you know the context of that scripture, but it's interesting that even the accolades of the world came after.
That's right.
But it came putting Him first and ministering to the people. You know, it's not preached a lot. Everyone wants the big stage.
Yes.
Or the skinny jeans and fog machines and all that silliness. But the real glory is when He said, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and in prison and you came and visited me. When you've done to the least of these, you've done it unto me, and you have done it to the least of these. And have seen people have been impacted for the kingdom through you. And people that the world may not always desire, but just like my friend Jamie Bearhill, credible man, and all over the world with you, is that the people that may not be wanted by the world becomes the people everybody wants They become leaders. They become pastors. And they too speak before leaders as well. What an incredible living legacy, Dr. Ron.
Oh, thank you, my brother.
Yeah. And I know that you're going to have a chance to share one of these incredible illustrations of Jesus. And you know, it's getting hard to ignore the Bible, isn't it?
It is.
For the world, not for us, but for the world.
No, it is.
The Bible is coming true. You can't even talk about all the things you're involved in that impact the world.
That's true.
The entire world.
It would maybe it would torpedo what is going to come next.
Yeah.
If I said something now. So.
What would you have to those? And I've done a lot of talking because I can't talk enough about you. But however, we're here to encourage people to follow the Lord and to go to keepafoundation.org. Get behind that work, the incredible work that's going on there. But in addition to Egypt, which now a lot of people in Garbage City are free.
Yeah.
You need to Google about that, folks.
Yeah, and that was probably one of the highlights of our 34 years in Egypt. The breaking down of the walls at Garbage City, because for the benefit of those who don't know what Garbage City is all about, my brother, for the last 1,000 years, if you profess openly that you're a believer in Jesus, then you're tattooed on your hand or on your arm, and that identifies you as a heretic, as a pagan, basically. And there's only one exception, and that's if you're a historical member of the Coptic Church, if you're a member of the Saladin back 1,000 years ago. Because a doctor who was a Copt helped his daughter and saved her life, then he rewarded the Coptic people by saying, "You will always be welcome in Egypt. You cannot be more than 7% of the population, but you will always have a place of existence in Egypt." That they won't let them evangelize, so their growth is by birth only. And so, but besides that, anybody else who professed Christ, you were tattooed and you were marked for life and restricted from anything. But then under President Nasser, the one who built the dam and so forth, and he started placing the Christians in the garbage dumps. And there they were guarded by the military around the clock, wouldn't let them leave, and their life went through absolute hell on earth. And the water that they drank was the black, gooey seepage out of the piles of garbage, and the food that they ate were from the piles of garbage. And so we felt convicted of the Lord to start helping these folks. So we did, and we endured our own punishment as a result of it. But many people did come to Christ because of it, and we initially had to sneak over the walls at night and get the food in, and then we started. Then we bought some trucks and started taking trash in, large bundles of trash in there, which was permitted, but that trash was covering our bags of hope that we can give to the people. Now, Brent, for the sake of those that don't know what a bag of hope is.
Right. Okay,
a bag of hope is a canvas bag about 1 meter tall. And we're in America, about 1 yard tall. And we fill it full of rice and beans and macaroni and things like that, and things that that you could cook pretty easily and not spoil. And we also include a water with that. And a one bag is enough to feed a widow and 4 children for an entire month. And so we always feed the widows first. We feel like James wasn't making a mistake when he said that. What is true religion. And James 1:27, he didn't mention anything about wonderful churches. He didn't mention anything about television stations or radio programs. He didn't mention ministerial societies. He didn't say anything about the Baptist or the Assemblies of God or the Church of God or the Church of Christ or the Catholic Church or any of them. No churches, no denominations. He says perfect religion is this. He said you take care of those widows. You take care of those fatherless.
Yeah.
And you keep yourself pure. That is true religion. When my wife and I read that, we were over in Egypt, saying our morning devotions before we went out to do some work for the Lord. And I told her to, I think the Lord wants us to read James 1 today. She got down to 127. I said, stop. Go back and read that again. And she read it 8 times. And I finally got it. This is exactly what God wants. He confirmed it by Deuteronomy 15 too, is that he wants us to spend our lives ministering to those that cannot help themselves. Widows in particular, there in Egypt and in India and Colombia and various other places. And then the fatherless or the kids who are orphans. And it made a real impact on me. And then I asked her, I says, is there any mention in that scripture about Christian widows? No. Is there any mention about Jewish widows? No. Any mention about Roman widows? No. What about Greek widows? No. Only thing it says is widows. There's no definition on what kind. I said, what about a prerequisite? Do they have to accept Jesus first before they get their care? No. So what's the only qualification? Widow.
Widows.
In the city of Cairo, when we first started this, there were 2.5 million widows who were living under bridges, living next to ditches, under stairwells. See, in the Islamic faith, when a woman becomes a widow, it's her fault. And because she was not a good enough widow to her husband, or she was not a good enough wife to her husband, Allah took her husband away from her to punish her. And so she could never get married again. And so now it's up to the family. The estate that he and her collected is not hers. It belongs to the next male member of the family. That may be a son, it may be a grandson, it may be a down-the-line cousin.
Right.
And it's up to those people to determine her fate. They might let her live in the house, they may not. And they might let her live on the property someplace, or they may not. They just may kick them out in the streets. And that is what has happened. At that time, 2.5 million, now it's almost 5 million.
Wow.
And so we certainly have our job cut out for us. And but we're still delivering the bags of hope. Right now, we started out with 3, and now we're about 1,300 a month.
Wow.
Along with the same amount of...
It's a miracle.
About the same amount of orphans also. It is a miracle. And of course, the Muslim Brotherhood has tried to shut us down. They've stolen from us 3 or 4 times, and
Even though the Quran in Surah 52:2
yeah, right.
commands even the Muslims to take care of
That's right.
widows, any widows.
That's right.
Right.
But they skirt around that.
Right.
So, so we're still that's still our major emphasis in what we're doing over in Egypt, as well as you know, we've been shut down going to India, but the folks over there, our leaders over there, our workers over there, are following through. And my son Brad is in charge of our South America, Latin America emphasis, and he's delivering the same food down in Nicaragua and Honduras and Guatemala, Colombia, Peru. And we were in Venezuela and just barely got out of there without getting killed. And
Wow.
we had an orphanage down there on the border, and they came in, tried to steal all the children. And Brad was there at the time, and he just stood up to them. He said, "You're not taking our kids."
Right.
They says, "Well, we'll take you." He says, "You can have me, but you're not going to take our kids." And so that while he was arguing with them, then they had the kids run off as fast as they could. So he kept them busy arguing
Wow.
with them, and then they escaped. And then when they then noticed what was happening, then the soldiers started running after the kids, and then Brad ran off. So everyone was safe.
Wow. And that's one of many
Yes,
stories like that.
one of many.
You know, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. That's an understatement in your case, my friend. You know, amazing things. And back to the bags of hope that are Latin America as well as Egypt.
Yeah.
A miracle to give away that many bags of hope.
It is.
Which, by the way, you can sponsor Bags of Hope on CubanFoundation.org. But even a greater miracle is the Widow's Farm
Oh,
out in the middle of the Sahara.
yeah.
Yeah, been there twice, pulling onions out of the ground, okra, grapes,
Things are not supposed to grow.
eggplant, things aren't supposed to grow in the desert, and yielding, I would say, tenfold of a crop than the surrounding areas that are attempting to do the same thing. The people were afraid because they weren't getting those results in their prayers.
That's right.
But the world has taken notice of this miracle in the middle of the Sahara. And it's the Widow's Farm that you started.
The Widow's Farm.
God's Widow's Farm.
That's right. And that's what it's called. And when they covered us in the paper, the Cairo paper, that's what the title was: God's Widow's Farm makes a mark.
Understatement, making a mark.
The land that was given to us, it was actually it was left in a will, and the folks didn't know. So what are we going to do with desert with 3 acres of desert land? And so our Muhammad, our workers over there in Egypt, they said, well, why don't we try to farm it? Okay, there's no water. You had to dig by hand.
Right.
Everything by hand. You had to carry the water from a sewage ditch 3 miles away, carry it all the way there just to put enough water to wet the seed.
That was amazing.
It
Even
was.
before anything else was developed.
Yeah. And farms in the area that had been well irrigated, and they did have some product, and they averaged about plus or minus 1 ton of produce per acre, and which was good production for that desert area. And so the first year that our guys were cultivating by hand, carrying water by hand, doing everything by hand, harvesting by hand, everything. We produce 3 tons on those per acre for those 3 acres.
3 tons
3 tons
of
per acre.
crops
Yes.
per acre
Per acre.
in the middle of the Sahara.
In the middle of the Sahara. And we kept that for 3 years, and then we had an anonymous donor who happened to be a friend of mine, but he wanted to keep his name out of it, and he bought the surrounding acreage and gave it to us. So now we have 10 acres. And I went out there one day, and there were these dirt digging machines coming across the desert. I said, what's going on? And he says, "This is your birthday present." I said, "My birthday present?" And that was in December. And I said, "My birthday is not till August." He says, "Well, this is your past birthday present." I said, "Okay." And so this friend of ours and friend of Cubit, and he laid out $2.3 million to bring irrigation from the Nile River to our property as a gift.
And then it became more amazing, the results.
Now we have, and then he gave us the extra acreage, and now we have 10 acres. And that 10 acres is now producing between 9 and 10 tons per acre.
So much so that even after it's blessing the widows, that you're blessing more than that.
Oh yeah, we give the widows all they can take, all they can eat, and then we take it to the market. And the grapes are so they're so wonderful that people stand in line to get our grapes.
I've had them.
And they're
Big.
They're excellent.
Some would say it's a freak of nature. Well, it's a miracle. It's a real life miracle.
It is.
That no one can debate.
That's right. They
And
can't.
it's the envy of everyone.
Yeah.
It is.
And it's just phenomenal. And so we sell the stuff at the market, and then everything from the market goes to the widows. We are able to take them to doctors, to dentists, buy school supplies, shoes, blankets for the winter, and all of those types of things. And so every piece of produce goes to the widows or sold on behalf of the widows, and every penny goes to them.
It's also some livestock there.
Oh yeah, we have goats and sheep, and we had 40 sheep, female sheep, and those 40 female sheep, 38 of them gave birth this year, and so that stock is still continuing. And though, of course, those are for butchering to give to the widows, and we butcher the sheep as well as some water buffalo and camels, and all of that meat goes to them.
Folks, if you've never had vegetables and meat free of all the pesticides and hormones,
Yeah.
and all this stuff, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. So you're giving the very best of the best
Yes.
to God's kids and to the widows and the orphans and beyond. You're helping feed the nation.
That's right.
You know, folks, get behind Bags of Hope today. KeepItFoundation.org. Go there and get your hands on incredible teaching about Jesus. And talk about context. You know, in Bible college, we'd always hear, you know, context is king, context is king. Folks, you haven't heard context until you've really, you know, those of you who watch God's Learning Channel, you are watching because you love to hear the story behind the story, the context of Scripture. So many of you love the Hebraic context. Well, how much more would you even love not only the Hebraic context, but also the historical context of the stories of Israel and Jesus and Egypt? As a matter of fact, there's a perspective about the life of Moses from the Egyptian perspective that you've never considered, perhaps never before. I can't wait for that book to come out. Now, 21 books so far, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And all of those books you can get on cubitfoundation.org.
Yes.
There's DVDs, there's CDs, there's ebooks on Amazon as well. Of course, your podcast is going crazy. And during this time, where so few trust the internet and they trust donating on the internet, you have a safe and secure portal to donate and to get behind this incredible work all over the world. There's even a $10,000 gift recently online. And if those of you who work in media or the internet the way that I do, you know what I'm talking about. That's a big thing. And so to be able to trust that your money, all of it goes to where it needs to go, and incredible works, bags of hope, and boy, talk about hope. I have seen video of widows receiving that help. There's not a welfare system, folks, like there is here. Okay, you don't see people that are 300 pounds that are oppressed over there. I'll never forget seeing so many things. Beautiful people, precious people. But a widow in the dirt using the water from the street to wash her hands, or maybe even clean off her child's face. We don't know how good we have it here. So get behind what God is doing. You will be blessed. That's a guarantee. The Kiva Foundation, oh my gosh. The education alone, folks, you can get. And of course, you've been watching Dr. Ron Charles right here on GLC. You know, The Chase, with Dr. Ron Charles. It's always a delight. Now, you come to West Texas, you go to other places too. You can have Dr. Ron Charles come speak at your church or your event and tell these incredible stories, real life stories that will build your faith and build awareness for this time, folks. These aren't the days that we just business as usual, you know that. These are the days we read about. What are you doing? What are you doing at this time of history that the days we read about is unfolding? Are you asleep? Are you distracted? Are you so buried in this?
Yeah.
That you can't see the world around you? Folks, play your part. Do you think that you were born at this place in history as an accident? There's an expectation. Jesus said, to whom much is given, much is expected. Generations before us have dreamed to be alive, have a privilege to be alive at this time in history. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Are you pouring it away? Are you escaping into Netflix or TikTok? Or are you playing the part that your ancestors only dreamed they could play? This is the time to live and to live well, to get behind what God is doing. You will be blessed for it, but you're also expected to take your place in history, in His kingdom.
Yes, that's right.
You know, the same thing with GLC here, the last of its kind. The last of its kind, folks. We're not Lucifer's arm on the earth deceiving you. We're giving you true news. We're giving you true accounts of the greatest story ever told. And we're highlighting people that are doing His work, like Dr. Ron Charles. Go to the CubaFoundation.org. Also go to glc.us.com, folks. We're in this together for as much time as we have. And speaking of time and how precious it is, as incredible as the things that you do with the Cuba Foundation, with the bags of hope all over the world, hospitals, orphanages, schools, so much more. There's also telling people about Jesus who are so hungry for him. People are hungry. Pardon me. People are in your neighborhood may or may not be hungry. People in America may or may not be hungry for Jesus. Let me tell you, people around the world are hungry for Jesus. He's appearing to a lot of people. He's appearing to the Egyptians. There was an appearance off the coast of Honey Island in a boat where Jesus appeared as he is to so many millions of Muslims in their dreams and in real life.
That's right.
Right off of Honey Island where we had that incredible honey on the Nile.
These guys were fishing, and then Jesus appeared to them. And he says, I am the one who called you to be fishers of men. And I am real. Look at my scars. I am Isa. Needless to say, they accepted Christ that day. And another incident in Luxor, friends of mine, and they were Muslim, and I'm not ashamed to have Muslim friends.
Right.
And but they were friends, and they were in the mosque, you know, and there were 28 of them, and they were there doing their prayers 5 times a day. And what they do, they prostrate themselves, and then they come back up, and then they prostrate themselves and come back up again, and that type of thing. But one time they went down and came back up, and Jesus was standing there. And he held his hands out, and he says, I'm Isa. I want you to be part of me, and I want to be part of you. They all accepted Christ that day. Not long after that, 20 of them were arrested, put in prison. 2 of them were beheaded, and the others were starved to death. But the ones who were put in prison, they went, you know, the prisons in Egypt are quite unique. They don't have fences and barbed wire and that type of thing with the prisons out in the desert. The Sahara is the prison, and they're there. They live in little pup tents that are set up there on the sand, and they do have guards around there and so forth. So a friend of mine took me out, you know, 4-wheel drive to visit them, and I went up to the main entry area there, and there was a guard there, and I told him what I wanted, and I wanted to visit these guys. And I introduced myself, and he says, "We know who you are." I said, "You do?" He said, "Yes." I said, "And I too am a believer like you. But it's would it be advantageous for me not to reveal that to people now?" I said, I understand. And he says, and then I says, "Well, the reason why I'm here," he says, "I know why you're here. You want to see the 20 men that are your friends." I said, "Yes, I do." He says, "You can't. It's forbidden. But I will tell you that they are doing well." He says, "They have ignited a Jesus, an Isa revival in this prison." He says, because of them, more than 200 have accepted Christ. 2 of them have had their tongues cut out because of their preaching. 2 of them have had their eyes gouged out. 2 more have had their hands cut off because they were lifting them in praise to Jesus. But they're in good spirits. They are happy, and they're blessed, and they're counted all joy to suffer for the cause of Christ. And I said, can I just see just one of them? They said, "No. But please know that they are in good hands, and they are where they need to be at this time." I said, "Okay, thank you. I appreciate it." And I turned to leave, and I went one step. I said, I need to pray for that man. Just a little prayer. And I turned around, and he was gone. And I said, he must have been in a hurry. But he was just gone. So I went back over to the car, and my friend said, are you ready to go? I said, yes, I am, but I just wish I would have been able to pray with him. And he says, pray for who? And I said, pray for the guard that I was talking to. He says, there was no guard. You were there by yourself, just you. And I said, no, I was talking to. Then I cut myself off. I said, okay.
Wow.
So God sent his own angels to care for those guys. And so that's not a obscure story. These are daily occurrences that are happening in the Islamic world.
And there's a hunger. There's such a hunger that there are some Muslims that I have met with you that have suffered more.
Yeah.
Have suffered more beatings, loss of loved ones. They've suffered more for the cause of Christ than most of you ever will. That's how hungry they are. And one of the things that you told one on the day that you were going to leave Egypt, before this whole adventure started, is he talked about giving life.
I was very discouraged. We had worked in Egypt now for 10 years with no converts, with zero converts. We were helping the widows, good, which is good, but there was no winning people to the Lord. There was no revival services. There was nothing. There was no converts whatsoever. I was extremely discouraged, and I said, God, I'll give you one more day. Of course, I'm sure he was afraid, you know. This was on a Wednesday, and I said, on Thursday, if it's the same thing, I'm out of here. Well, the next day, same thing happened. Worked all day long, ministered all day long, nothing, just zero. So I went down to the Nile River, and I said, okay, I'm gonna watch the sun go down on the Nile one last time, and it is a beautiful sight. So
Yes, it is.
I went down, and there was a Bedouin man down there with a little boat. Boat was probably maybe 8 feet long, and I hired it, and I told him I want to go out into the middle of the Nile, and I want to just sit and float, and I want to watch the sun go down. He said, yes. So we took off. I was sitting at this end, and he was sitting at that end. He was down there rowing, and he kept smiling at me, just this big smile. Well, I didn't want to smile at him. I was mad at God, and God needed to know that. I was mad at him.
Yeah. He can take it, Kenny.
He can take it. And so I didn't want him to smile at me, and I didn't want to smile at him. But finally, after a while, I just kind of got embarrassed for him. So I said, hello. He said, you can talk. I said, yes, I can talk. So he was speaking in English, and I said, yes, I can talk. He He says, "Ah, yes, you speak American English." I said, "Yes, I'm American." I said, "Oh, American good people. I love Americans. George Bush, he's a good friend of mine." And so I like Americans. He said, "You are American. You must be Christian." I said, "Yes, I'm Christian." I like Christians, Christian good people. I like Christian Jesus Christ. He's a good friend of mine. And I said, oh, is he? Jesus is your friend? Yes, Jesus is his friend. Yes. I said, do you know him? Who he is? Yes. In our Quran, he's Isa. I said, yes, he's Isa. He said, Isa is a great prophet. He's not as great as Muhammad, but he is a great prophet. Next to Muhammad, greatest. I said, okay. So but you know, Jesus is more than just a prophet. I know you Christians. You say God has son. God has no son. You say that Isa is son of God. But let me tell you, sir, God has no wife. If God has no wife, how can he have son? It just, the logic says no. I said, well, I logically, yes, I understand what you're talking about. But let me ask you something. Who makes life? And he says, God make life. I said, is that written in your Quran? Oh, yes, in Quran, even in your Bible, it's that God make life. I said, okay. The man over here on the shore that's leading the camel, can he make life? No, only God. I said, what about this man over here that's washing the water buffalo on the bank? Can he make life? No, only God make life. I said, okay, what about you? Can you make life? No. I said, can I make life? He said, no, you're not God. You cannot. I said, okay. I said, well, I want to tell you a story. Yes, I like stories, yes. I said, well, this story is written in your Quran. Yes, we have many stories in Quran. And I said, this one is about Isa, it's about Jesus. Yes, we have many stories of Isa in Quran. I said, well, this story is one that most Christians don't believe actually happened, but it's written in your Quran. And if it's written in your Quran, you believe. Yes, if it's in Quran, that's true, I believe. I said, okay. Well, in this story, Jesus, one day, he took clay, dirt from the ground. And with this clay, he molded the clay into the form of birds. And then he picked up the clay birds and he blew on them. And when he did, they came alive and they flew away. I said, now my question to you is this. If only God makes life and Jesus made life, then who was Jesus? And he was silent for about 10 minutes, didn't say a word. Finally, he says, I don't know, I cannot tell you. I said, well, let me tell you who Jesus is. And that man became our first convert, and it hasn't stopped since. And so we stayed.
He led a church?
He did. He started his own Bedouin church, the very first Bedouin church he started with his family. There were 7 members of his family, and that Bedouin church is now running more than 1,000.
Wow.
And God is faithful.
He wanted you to meet his family.
Yeah.
So you thought it'd be a 30-minute trip?
Turned out to be over 2.5 hours into that desert. And I was thinking around every corner, because it was already dark by then, that I'm going to be jumped, and this guy is a ploy, and I'm going to be robbed and all that. But it didn't happen. when we pulled up to his little house, it was made out of palm leaves and this little oasis about as big as this studio. And we put the camels down and he whistled. And when he did, his wife and his 6 kids or 5 kids came out of this little shack. And he says, "This is my good friend. He is American. He showed me and told me about Isa, real Isa, not Quran Isa, real Isa. And I have him right here, right now, and you will too. Bow down now." So I don't know whether it was conviction of the Holy Spirit or fear of Father, but they accepted Christ and became the first 7 members of that Bedouin church, and it's still going strong today.
And it goes on and on and on. Never forget being with you in a different part of the world. People who they walked over 1,000 miles.
Yes.
They were worshiping Jesus at the fear of their own life. We were there. This beautiful woman was singing worship and just worshiping. And she turns her head, and the side of her face was
gone,
horribly burnt away.
Yeah, it was just gone.
Her husband did that when she chose Jesus. What do we suffer for choosing Jesus? This is a time, folks, to stop the world, to snap out of it, to see things for what they are, for the lie that it is. The powers of darkness trying to snuff out your life and the lives of your children, to kill, steal, and destroy. But there is one who is the way and the truth and the life. It's Jesus. If we know him, then we have 1 foot on the earth and 1 foot in heaven. If we live, we win to serve him another day. And if we die, we win because we're with him. Get behind what he's doing. He's doing things, thecubitfoundation.org. Get behind it. You will be blessed for it. Get behind what we're doing here. You turned off all the lies and you tuned in here for a reason. You think it's an accident that you're watching this right now? There are no accidents.
No,
there are no coincidences with God. When David said, "My life was written in your book before I was born," destiny has brought you to me today and to Ron and us together. And the Kingdom's Gate, that band of warriors, rebel rousers out there that Bob Fu and others go to, Big Pond and Dr. Ron Charles and Ron Till and beyond, even Larry and Larry Lee, an old friend of yours. Do you know what, Dr. Ron? I'm so honored to have you yet again with us in West Texas.
It's been a privilege.
You know, something about West Texas, folks. Something about the desert. You're watching streams in the desert, voices in the desert. And that's what you are to many deserts and to the spiritual deserts over the airwaves. You're bringing life. Dr. Ron Charles, the Cuba Foundation, doing great things.
Thank you.
Let's do great things together, folks. Thank you, Dr. Ron, for being with us.
Thank you.
A lot of the Southwest. We love you.
Appreciate it.
We'll see you yet again.
Okay.
Thank you for watching us right here at GLC. God bless you.